You are lucky.
In the house is freezing, so I went outside.
Yes. Yeah, it's freezing in the house too.
Yeah.
And we don't have money, so all your heating and whatever, you have to look at the ESCOM meter going slowly but surely and reduce. Actually, but get it for COVID. Salaries have gone down. COVID.
Yes, poverty, Minister. I also did a food parcel.
This is not a moment for the caucus.
I need a
You gave us 5 minutes. We are women. We are connecting to each other.
It's done now. 5 minutes is over.
Okay, they say 5 minutes is over. Okay, bye.
Honorable members, are we back, Lindy?
Yes, we are.
We are, Chairperson.
We are here, Chair.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I think everyone is back.
CEO? CEO? Ms. Memela?
I thought it's very important to just highlight the last slide in terms of where we are with the process. I indicated that the master record in terms of the actual applications from the 13 million applications that we received after cleaning up that data, the master record gives us 6.3 million data sets. From there, we then take out the number that we actually clean up, which we verified in our own systems, and we verified 3.5 million from the overall number that we have. And of those, of the 3.5, 1.5 has actually been declined because those are people that may have means in other programs and still have applied for this particular program. So when you look at that, Chair, it's important to highlight that the numbers have improved significantly this week, because for those numbers that have come from SARS, the people that have been approved for payment are 666,000, and in terms of the budget that we had for the month of May, it was meant to be 750,000 based on the allocation that we got from the Minister of Finance, which therefore means that, Chair, we're already at 88% of the target as at to date, even though the month is almost we have done the payment starting at the beginning of the week, and we believe that by the time we finish the weekend, we would have done not only the 100,000 payments, but that we would have been able to send to get feedback beyond that from the people that have actually needing to commit in terms of the information for their some of the information that we don't have. We send information normally to SARS in batches, and we're awaiting announcements. And in many instances, we find that 50% of them actually fall off, and then we start then sending out the money. It has been a slow start, Chair, but it's really promising. We're excited about where we are, and the more channels we have, the easier we can make sure that we actually get the money to everybody that needs to get the money. It's getting there, Chair. It's been painful, but we're getting it.
Chair, I want to use the last 20 seconds of the CEO, if I may, but just highlighting a very important point, which is around the fact that we're exploring the transition from food parcels to vouchers. As I indicated previously, and I want to highlight that, of course, food parcels can be a logistical nightmare. At times it can be cumbersome. It's expensive, and indeed can be labor intensive, and it also limits the choice that which recipients have. But the vouchers part it can be much quicker. It can provide choice. It can assist us in terms of managing the data much easier, and we'll then be able to have an inventory. But the most important and critical part is that it provides positive spin-offs for local economic development where money is circulating in various communities. And so this stimulates local economic development. I thought I'd just highlight that.
Thank you. Honorable members who are living on borrowed time, can I ask honorable members to do no more than 2 minutes? Do we agree?
Yes, Chair.
We agree, Chair.
I want to repeat this. Do we agree?
Yes, Chair.
Yes, Chair.
Yes, Chair.
Can I get hands? Thank you very much. I only heard a yes. That's lovely. We're living on borrowed time. The hands, Lindiwe, give me the names.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chairperson. I have the following members who indicate their interest to ask question. Number 1 is Member Stock, Member Masango, Member Eris, Member Alexander, Member Ngwenya, Member Sukers, Member Fanda Merve,
Wait.
Member Priet. I'll say I'll forward the names to you, Chair.
You said Member Alexander?
Member Ngwenya.
Yes.
Member Sukers.
Yes.
Member Fanda Merve.
Yes.
And Member Priet.
Member?
Priet.
Member Priet?
Priet.
Member Priet. Okay.
Yes. And I've just saw Member Manganye also wants to make a contribution.
Member Manganye.
The last person.
Secretary. Chairperson.
The last person.
And Member Pilankulu.
Aye.
Member Pilankulu.
Yes. Oh, the hands. Who's behind?
The last person who's going to speak will be the chair of the NCOP to make her remarks. This is the last list, honorable members. Are we in agreement?
Yebo.
Thank you very much. 2 minutes each. Stop.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. I'm going to be very quick. I've got just one question on the presentation of SASSA around the SRD program, the grant issue. Just want to find out what is going to happen to the people or the beneficiaries or the community members that have applied for the grant about maybe 3 weeks or a month ago, and then they have not yet been approved, they have not yet received their payment. That's the first thing. And then secondly, I also want to know those that did not have access to the internet facilities to be able to make their applications for the SRT grant. And then the month of May has already passed. Now, if they are going to make their application in June, does it mean that the department is going to do a retrospective payment to those beneficiaries? Or they are only going to be paid from June onward? It means that they have lost the month that they've already passed. Or what is going to happen? Can I please get that clarity? Thank you very much, Chair.
Honorable Masango.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to ask one question from SASSA. I saw that they have a sort of process of how they are processing the application up after the application has been approved, and I would like to know if they could send us a picture, like a picture of what the messages look like so that we know what to tell people when they ask. And the other thing that I wanted to ask from the department side is that there seems the presentations this morning and the presentation that the DDG did this also. There seems to be a situation where the department is referring to coordination and consultation with the NGO sector all the time, but the reality on the ground is proving differently. And also one is very saddened by the fact that the minister on numerous times keeps calling the genuine concerns of the NPOs and CBOs on the ground noise, when they are saying, can they please get some help? And one wonders then whether this is going to be at any time be resolved, but one also is encouraged by the MEC, acting MEC for social development in Gauteng, who has withdrawn the guidelines. I really am pleading with the minister and the department to please not call concerns noise, but work with the NPO sector. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Aris.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I'm very worried because every time the CEO of SASSA come with news stories, last week in the portfolio, she told us that the SASSA grants will be paid on a weekly basis. Yet, only 10 people has been paid this 350 rand. My concern is that she has indicated there's 660,000 people that need to be paid these social, this 350 rand. Does SASSA have the capacity to, to pay these people? Because it is really worrisome, and I want to know, what do they have in place while people are waiting for this 350 rand since they have stopped these food parcels? And then, Chair, my other concern is that SASSA is still operating with limited staff. In Mandansani, in the Eastern Cape, only 1/3 of SASSA workforce are currently at work. The only service so far, 40 people per day, and people sleep outside of the offices of SASSA. There's a possibility that people can get sick outside. They become victims of crime and everything. They can be raped, they can be killed outside SASSA offices. Who are going to take responsibility? Why can't SASSA embark on working in terms of shift in order to assist our people? Why are SASSA offices still not, why is SASSA offices still not fully functional? Then, Chair, on the issue of child support grant, the child support grant was just increased for May. And then afterwards, it's 500 rand caregivers, a caregiver grant. What's the reason why the child, because it means that the child support grant was not increased. And why is it that all of a sudden it became a caregiver grant while it was mentioned that it is a child support grant increase? Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Alexander.
Thank you, Chairperson. Getting straight to it. When will the department or the minister issue the social...
Alexander yourself?
Yeah, Alexander is my first name, Chair.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, fine.
And I'm assuming that's the only one here. So when will the department issue the social development directives for public participation, and where will the funds come from to implement these new directives? Also, how many mid-mix has the department held since the start of COVID-19? And then on the issue of ECDs, my experience with the sector has been a little different. Some of the ECD sector, they are ready to open. I've read in-depth proposals and notes, and so many of them are ready to open. And earlier this year, Chairperson, we had a presentation on the effects of stunting and the importance of the first 1,000 days of a child's life. Parents go back to work on Monday and they cannot leave their children at home, nor can they forfeit their jobs. And my fear is that if we wait for level 1, there's going to be no ECD sector to go back to, and we would have unraveled all the years' work of getting ECDs registered and compliant, as many more ECDs will pop up and be unregistered. And if we think that ECD sector in the informal areas are not operating, they are still very much operational. And then on the topic of ECDs, I'd like to know that if a directive was sent out nationally for the ECDs to still, for the subsidized ECDs to still have their kitchens open, if they are still receiving their subsidies for the ECD. Then lastly, my question maybe to Peter, if you can maybe clarify the knock and drop, because I want to find out, are you expecting NGOs to carry 300 plus containers on them and physically go to each house to knock and drop each of the containers? Because not even our South African Springbok foundations are doing that. They are bringing people out to the courtyards and they are lining them up, adhering to social distancing, and they are giving them a food parcel. So my question basically is, can I still cook my 100-liter pot, and can people still come and collect their plate of food from me, or will I be issued a fine from SAPS? And then lastly, Chairperson, I would just like to find out, Since the brands of the products in the food parcels are changing due to availability of stock, how are these government food parcels identifiable to the recipient? How does the recipient know they have now been issued a government food parcel, Chief? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Chair. I will not be long. I just needed to find out on the progress of hiring the extra 1,800 social workers. How far are they in terms of progress? When will we see these 1,800 social workers on board, all of them? And I was hoping that Umam Numalo will give us in a report on gender-based violence during this time of COVID as well. I'm disappointed that there's no report on that at all. So I'm requesting that in our next meeting, can we please have a detailed report on GBV and what has been happening and what has the department playing as a role in making sure that these women and these children are safe. My other thing in terms of what the DM has raised, quick when we're speaking to NGOs, I would request, please, a detailed report of compliance, the compliance issue of these NGOs and MPOs that she was talking about, that we know exactly what is going on in terms of compliance. And I missed the presentation, Gasis Totsi, so she might have answered that. I was having network problems. I just need to know that out of the 3.5 million applications of these 350, how many has been paid? And in an article in some newspaper, she mentioned that there are also incomplete applications. Now, I want to know that is it due to the people not being able to complete their applications for whatever reason, or the people have just decided to stop applying? And if the people have experienced problems with continuing their applications, what are they going to do in making sure that those people do want to continue with their applications and they do continue with their applications? Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Ngwenya. Honorable Second.
Sure.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation from the department. We appreciate it. I just want to ask a few questions, Chair. The first is if Mr. Mchunu can just give a breakdown. I don't know if I missed it last week, but it was indicated to me that in the Northern Cape, the food relief budget was depleted, and that is the reason why we're still struggling with that 100 families that we are trying to get food aid to. Secondly, I want to ask of the NGOs that is presented to us today, how many of them are receiving funding from DSD? And then the biggest problem that we're having that I want to highlight to the department again is that the biggest issue on the ground is that people do not know where to find aid and how to access that aid. And then secondly, how community organizations such as churches can get assistance from from the department on the food aid programs that they are having for communities. What is a serious issue for us as the committee to highlight again is that we need a serious long-term strategy to ensure food security to a bigger basket of need. The UIF payouts to people has been minimal. There are some people who has not received any UIF payments. So although they are listed as people receiving funding from somewhere, they still suffering food insecurity because they don't have an income. We've had several people calling us in the last 2 weeks that are not currently working, who has applied for UIF relief, are not getting a salary, and that are without food.
Thank you, Secretary.
Okay.
You can wrap up. You can wrap up.
Oh, So the long-term strategy, Chair, in terms of how do we all work together? I'm talking about the churches, the NGOs, and specifically for the department to give us an indication of how are they developing new strategies around that, aside from the framework, the regulatory framework that they've explained. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Van der Merwe.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you very much to all the presentations and the presenters. I think I want to acknowledge that some good work is being done, but I do believe that the amount of families that we are currently feeding is going to be a drop in the ocean of the amount of people that actually need assistance. And I want to go back to what the DM said earlier. The issue of duplication of food parcels is quite a big concern because we get reports of some families who are receiving multiple food parcels while others are not receiving any help. And I think this is something we need to look into, and that strengthening and coordinating mechanism really needs to be prioritized so that we stop this duplication where some families are receiving a lot of help where others are not getting any help. On the issue of the slide about the undocumented migrants or migrants living in our country who are not getting support from government, I would like to know what is the working arrangement between social development and home affairs in terms of possibly relocating undocumented migrants to centres where they can be helped, like, for example, Lindela or the refugee centres here. Because as I understand it, of course, social development cannot help undocumented migrants who without the requisite documents and ID documents or papers. So has there been any working arrangement between yourselves and Home Affairs? Also, what has been the talks with yourself and the embassies? Have they come forward to offer support, and what type of support are they offering? I heard about the monitoring. There's a very effective monitoring and evaluation of food parcels. So if that is correct, and we know exactly where each food parcel is going and for what purpose and to what ward and what family, then I think at one stage also, I would like to see the department reporting or being able to report those who have abused food relief and food parcels for political processes to the relevant authorities. And I would like us to also maybe receive a report whether anybody has been held to account yet for abusing food parcels or the access to food relief. The acting, we move to an easier way of helping our people, and I definitely think this is a better option. On the issue of the social relief of the stress grant, I need to be clarified on some of the numbers. We speak about the applications that we received. It's about 6.2 million. I'm almost. Chair, can I continue? I'm almost done. Oh.
No, please close.
Okay. I want to ask about the social relief of the stress grant. We speak about the applications of 6.2 million. And then the CEO says that 750,000 people will be paid. Does this mean that almost 4.4 or 5 million people, or how many people were then unsuccessful in applying for this grant? And is this largely due to the fact that they were already receiving help from elsewhere, or is it simply because they couldn't submit the necessary documentation? And I would like to know, with the reopening of SASSA offices, have we made provision to receive applications for the new grant in person? Because I want to say again that by asking South Africans who do not have access to data or airtime to apply for this new grant on WhatsApp or on the internet has excluded many people from accessing this grant or even being able to successfully.
We agreed on 2 minutes.
Okay. Then I will submit the rest of my questions.
Please do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Agbare Breed.
Dankie, agbare voorsitter. Thank you, Chair. I think the NPO issue has been covered quite extensively, so I will leave that. I would like to reiterate what Honourable Abrams said in terms of the ECDs. Dagzorgcentrums, I'm not sure, daycare centres, and all of the rest. I'm receiving a lot of issues specifically with permitted and essential services where a mom and a dad are specifically essential services and family is not nearby to look after children. What is the plan in terms of that? I am not seeing any regulations in level 3 either speaking to this, and I think really we need to assist those essential and permitted services to be able to continue with that. And then, Chairperson, maybe just to hook onto what Honourable Van der Merwe and the rest have said said regarding the SRD grant, I've picked up a lot of people can submit, but they do not get to the stage where they can actually enter their banking details and are told that they would actually be able to that SASSA will contact them back to actually double check that. I would like to find out then, is SASSA equipped to actually contact every, I think you said 3.5 people have been approved. How are you actually going to be assisting and contacting these people to verify their banking details and so forth? Specifically also speaking to payments in future. We are talking about the payments that were supposed to be made on the 15th, and I think Honourable Ngwenya mentioned that. But now we are in a process of actually paying them out from the beginning of the week and hopefully have 100,000 paid by the end of this weekend. How are we envisioning June payments and further payments in this regard? Will it be a staggered approach? Will we ensure people actually get these amounts? And I would like to reiterate what Honourable van der Merwe said. I think we need to look at our local SASSA officers as well to take away the stress of our systems that continually falter or where you cannot actually, the system. Thank you, Chairperson. Dank u, voorzitter.
Honorable Manganye.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. I've been covered by Honorable Stock.
Thank you. Honorable Bilankolo, all the way from Limpopo.
Chairperson.
Hello.
Hey, thank you very much. I just want to be a little bit biased, Chair. I just want to get clarity from the department and also the entities as to do the department and the agencies have a clear target that talks about the women empowerment in their APPs in order to address also the issue of GBV, the issue of youth and people living with disabilities, while addressing gender responsive planning, budgeting, monitoring, and evaluation in the department. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Honorable Chair, Gillian, do you want to make some remarks?
Chairperson?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear.
Okay, thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me welcome the presentations by the department and also thank the Minister and the DM for the hard work.
Risk up.
I can see there's a lot of improvement since the last report. Now, Chairperson, just I've got 3 issues. I just need to find out from the Minister or the DG the issue of home visits that was not allowed from the department to the vulnerable to do the SASSA applications, when that service will be started again. Then also the issue of the DSD food parcels that could not be delivered into areas where there was riots or stuff like that. Is the department looking into maybe give those communities some vouchers because they was prohibited to deliver the food parcels in those areas? And then my big concern, Chairperson, is the SASSA officers and the elderly and the vulnerable people who is queuing in front of these offices, and also people who are going there already during nighttime and it is cold now. Isn't there another way of how we can look into how we will assist those people that are sitting in front of the offices throughout the night? Then lastly, Chairperson, I think we also need to get an update in our next meeting on the process of the 350 Rand grant. A lot of members have spoken into that, but there is also a good report that at least people are being attended to, but we need a breakdown, and we also need that breakdown of why people are being disqualified from this grant. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Linton. Linton. Where is ATG?
I'm here, Honorable Chairperson.
How many minutes do you need to wrap up?
We could push for 5 to 6 minutes, Chairperson.
Amandla, do it that way.
Thank you, Chair. I will ask the CEO of SASSA to go first, followed by Peter, and then I will address the remainder of the issues. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much.
It was important to first address the issue of the officers as to why all the staff are not yet back. We were just on phase 4 in terms of the lockdown process, and the requirement was that we can only bring back 30% of the staff. That's why the staff have not been fully there. We're now looking at this adjusted strategy and looking at what capacity are we going to be able to bring to the offices on level 3, and we've also looked at what systems to put in place for people to be able to begin to make appointments so that we can ensure that there's no sleeping over at the offices, because people would know that they won't lose their place in the queue. In terms of the medium term that we're looking at, Chase, to make sure that people can begin to apply for grants electronically, particular grants, for example, the child grant, we can link to Home Affairs system. Also for the elderly, we can link to the Home Affairs system so that people can be able to do it differently and not have to come and queue at the offices. And that's the medium-term strategy that we have to make sure that we provide support. On the issue of payment, how often are we going to pay? As we clear people, we actually pay daily. We move this week, for example, as the first week, we've done the payment twice, because we don't do the payment of the special grant once a month like we do the other grants. So as people apply, as they get processed, then we pull the payment fund and we pay them, because this grant is not in the SOPAN system, which is difficult to actually make changes, because this is a completely different system. That's why it makes it possible for us to pay continuously. On the people that don't have access to technology, we've been engaging different NGOs together with them, but also NDA has given us, in all the provinces, they've given us the people that they've been using on the ground that are brought on board through the NGOs, that will be helping those communities where people don't have access to technology to make sure that they can also apply. For those people that have applied this month, obviously, they will continue to get their benefit coming from this. For those that apply in future, and we've noted that the numbers have come down. For those that apply in future, if you know your grant actually kicks in at the time when you apply, but you'll be paid monthly. For those that have applied this month, we'll pay them double, because there's proof that they've already actually applied. On the issue of I've indicated how we'll pay, and the fact that the people that don't have, those that get kicked out as they try to put their banking details, what we will do for the first month, we'll deposit the money, and we'll actually communicate with them using SMS to indicate to them as to what the process is, where they can get their money once they try to give us their bank details. It's been interesting that 65% of the people actually do have bank details, and many have actually uploaded them. On the decision in terms of the allocation was that for first month, it's going to be a grant per child, but beyond that, it will be to the caregiver. So that was a decision that was already made, and we've already created a system to implement that. Hence the amounts are different for month May and month June. On the issue of home visits, the team is looking again at a risk-adjusted strategy to look at what is it that we can do for those people that require home visits as we move to phase 3 of the process, so that we can make sure that those people are also serviced. I think I've tried to answer most of the questions that were asked, including the issue of
Thank you,
access.
CEO. Linton?
Thank you, CEO. Peter, you've got 1 minute.
Okay, thanks very much, Chairperson and members and DM and Minister. With regard to the issue of food distribution, remember, honorable members, we are guided by the directions under the Disaster Management Act that prescribes what can be done and how we need to behave in terms of whatever we are doing. At level 3, it also prohibits sitting down in restaurants and others, meaning that even our CNDC cannot cook and people go and eat. So the knock and drop approach is to direct food to the household and limit the contacts between people. Even all those that provide food need to adhere to this regulation. Throughout all 9 provinces, the department is working with a variety of NPOs, FBOs, CBOs, and soup kitchens, and they follow the directive appropriately. The distribution of food takes place everywhere, but I think the issue where we are working with an NPO, they know what to do, and you might have heard how they distribute the food to all those people that we have. The other issue is the issue of their coordination approach. There is strength coordination approach that we have with non-profit organizations that we always have. And even during this time, we get a lot of requests that they want to distribute there, and we issue them necessary documents to distribute food in those areas. Even the FBOs, they will say they want to go to Mamelodi. In the sections they want to distribute food, we allow them to do that, and they report back to us. On the issues of undocumented migrants, it's dicey. It's a very dicey situation. Even if you go and say, come and eat, they won't come because they think that we are going to organize police to arrest them because they're undocumented. But we've been working with international organization to deal with that, including the Department of Health. I think that report in terms of which household, which ward, is something that we are working on. We're improving on what we have so that we can provide you with that real-time data. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just to highlight a few points. One, we will continue to call we will continue to raise the call for coordination on distribution of food parcels. We can't compromise on that. We appreciate very much so the work that is being done by NGOs, and we're saying that it's important that we do so in a dignified manner and in a coordinated manner. It's fundamental. Secondly, we are of the view that not all ECDs are ready. Our key concern is the readiness of ECDs and the safety of children. So we're looking into this, and we are working on a plan to try and bring them up to a state of readiness. The other question asked around social workers, the progress, I can tell you now, honorable members, that in 4 provinces, there will be social workers starting to on the 1st of June. I can tell you that in the Northwest, in the Northern Cape, in Limpopo and the Eastern Cape, social workers, the appointments have been finalized and they will start working. In the Free State, in Mpumalanga, KZN and Gauteng, the appointments are at an advanced stage, and we look at starting to work in the middle of June as well. I must also highlight that there is a long-term strategy for food, Chair. The issue is we're having to adjust it because of COVID. And because they are moving or evolving targets, it needs for us to really find a way of trying to, in a way, predict where we anticipate the right food. But I must highlight also that this is why collection is fundamental. It's important. And not only data from our centers, but data also from NPOs. Lastly, Chair, I want to just say that with regards to vouchers, we've received a number of requests, and we are working on these, including the costings thereof. But remember, we must bring build into the monitoring and monitoring mechanisms, particularly through real-time data. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. I was about to mute you.
It's not fair.
Honorable Minister, can we give you 2 to 3 minutes to deal with a number of issues, in particular the noise story? Minister?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I don't want to start with the noise story. I'll deal with it at the end. I just want to make the statement that we are on a national effort to manage the current situation which we are finding ourselves in. We're not the only ones in the world that are going through this, but however, we need to work with each other, work with each other, and make sure that we support each other, both as government, as NPOs, as NGOs, and everybody, and in particular, the work we need to do with yourselves as members of Parliament, because you have your constituencies. And so when you raise issues with us here, we take the issues that you are raising very seriously, because we have to be accountable. But also, Chairperson, I want to say that COVID has happened and it has woken us to a whole new way of doing things, and therefore we need to re-engineer some of our systems. I don't want us to throw everything and behave like as if some of our systems haven't worked. We need to make sure that our system respond to the felt needs of our people. I also want to say that we need to use our platforms to serve our people with dignity. So when I answer the question about the noise, it has absolutely nothing to do with me as a person and my department also as an institution not respecting people. We will respond to people according to the way they also respond to us, because I don't want us to be political here on this platform. This, for me, is not the platform for me to be political. It's a platform for me to respond and explain exactly what do we do. Fact of the matter is that there's lots and lots of people out there who are really doing their best to work with us, and this has been expressed by many of the members here. So we will continue to work with those. However, those who want to then occupy the platform and begin to make us feel like we are a useless bunch of people who are not doing the work, I am not going to take kindly to that, and I'm not going to be apologetic when I'm responding to people who actually are not helping us in the process. The other issue I want to deal with is that we must not forget that we have social protection reforms that we need to start doing, looking at seriously on the basis of what has happened. We have social assistance system that is applauded generally, but is weakened now by the challenges that we are facing here. And therefore, my view is that we must respond in the short term, in the long term. But having said that, we must not lose sight of the fact that we have strategic plans which were adopted. We have the annual plan, which was adopted. What we need to do now as a department is to see the reprioritization of those plans, especially the annual plan, reprioritization of our budget, considering the fact that the first quarter of 2020 is actually gone, and we've not been able to implement many of the things that we had planned to do. So we need to be held accountable in terms of the adjustments that we need to do. And those adjustments will be basing themselves also on the questions that members have asked here, our response to those plans, all the questions that were asked, and the issue of GBV and our response back to that, the issue of the special fund and how we are going to be coordinating with that. I think that we want to make sure that we adjust our plans to respond to the current situation. And as for the withdrawal of Gauteng of the directives, this is what we normally do. We wait for the regulations to be concluded and dealt with through COGTA. and we are part and parcel of the interministerial that works on those. So we have not even issued any directive towards a level 3 because we have to wait for the finalization, which has now been done. We will get to the platform and address our own directives. The fact that Gauteng withdrew, that's why I had a serious problem with us being taken to court on things that we had not done. Now it is said Gauteng has withdrawn. Gauteng should have been the first one to be taken into court without bringing us, because now in the public, it created an unfair situation where it was being said the department is stopping people from distributing food. We will never do that, but however, we make the statement, our people are not guinea pigs for some other people. The food has to be proper, the food has to be as far as nutritional as possible, the food shouldn't have expired, and also we must make sure that the protocols of COVID are adhered to, because nothing pains me than organizations that bring our people out to the street without coordination, without discussion, and people end up jostling and pushing for food because they are hungry. We need to respect our people and give them the dignity they deserve.
Thank you, Minister. Honorable members, can we come? I think we have a long day, but my opening remarks in my closing remarks on the matter will be, I think as the state in general, we will always be accountable to our people unconditionally. And I think that is a constitutional requirement. Two, that the issue of CBOs has been spoken about a lot in this meeting. I would request the department, which I know to have about 235 centers, to use those centers to interact with CBOs at those levels. And in the next meeting, give us a report, because the problem is that the fight tends to be between us, between government and the intermediaries, not the CBOs exactly. So it is important, therefore, that the department takes initiative in those centers that are already established, in those localities, have discussions with the CBOs and actually collate what are the summary challenges that you come across from the CBOs themselves. And I think it's not a matter for discussion, because I think it's a matter that the department, I think, can do. So that when we come here, we have a kind of report that includes, to me, the faith-based, what to call, organization. On the GPV, Honorable Ngwenya, Comrade Ngwenya and Honorable Ngwenya, it's not a problem, fine. They know the reason where they come from. Honorable Ngwenya spoke about GBV. That is an item in the next meeting, and I think it's a very, very important item. And thirdly, I would request honorable members, this committee should not discuss directives that are not in place, if we can be spared that. Because as a committee, we would want to interact with the directive in place and express our views. We are always entitled as a committee to express our views on any directives. But the key principles that we must agree upon, the issues of safety, the issues of health standard, the issues of dignity, regulations or no regulations, those matters, we always have a duty to make sure that they are adhered to. At the end of the day, there are general lockdown regulations which all of us are supposed to abide by. And having said that, I think that is where we end on the matter. Again, I want to thank the honorable members for the difficult day, which has been constructively engaged on. Quickly, because the time is not on our side, there is a court, North Gauteng court matter, the letter that critiqued the department on the inability to respond on the deadlines. I don't know whether the minister or the DG would actually make a short address where that thing is quickly. Minister?
Can the DG quickly deal with that?
Thank you, Minister.
Minister, I apologize. I'm really struggling to hear. If the chair could assist in please repeating the question, I sincerely apologize.
It's about the Gauteng High Court decision and the fact that the committee had said to us they wanted a report on whether we did adhere to the deadlines and all that, and whether we had submitted the report or not. And I responded to a letter to the chair. Can you just deal with that?
Thank you very much, Chair. The issue regarding the submission of the reports on foster care to the North Gauteng High Court have accordingly been met. We have submitted both reports, the latest being earlier this week, and in March, I think it was March, the first report. So we have complied accordingly, and we've transmitted that accordingly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, DG. Members, can we close that matter at that level unless there's something too hot to be said about it, which will make a difference other than the situation that is being presented?
Chair, may I ask a question?
Yes, yes.
I just want to know, is this linked to the letter that was sent on behalf of the committee last week?
Which letter?
To the cabinet. The letter that Chair sent.
No,
that we...
Honorable member, there's no letter that has been sent by the committee.
Well, Chair, I received an info alert that said that the chairperson of the portfolio committee or the portfolio committee on social development has requested that the amendment bill be fast-tracked through cabinet.
Can we deal with that differently? That matter, Honorable Speaker, we have it in hand. I thought we were going to table it here, but I'm worried about time. But it's a matter to me that can be addressed in the next meeting. I'm worried about time now. Let's separate that from what we're talking about now. What we're talking about now is the complaint by the applicant on the Children's Amendment Bill regarding department meeting the agreements as agreed during the extension to 2020 end of the year. There were agreement on the regular reports the department must give to court. So the applicant was saying that was not being adhered to.
You know, I want
to says it is being adhered to. That's a separate issue.
Can I say something, Chair, with your permission?
Yes.
Thank you very much. There's just two things, Chair, that I'd like us to separate. The first one, in terms of the issues around the foster care, it's our compliance with the committee, of which the acting DG has confirmed, so we've complied. The second part to the court order, honorable members, it's the passing of the amendment of the Children's Act that will enable us to be able to actually implement what we call the kingship grant. Yes, Chair. Yes, Chair.
I think we have separated. No,
okay.
Let's leave it. I think we know what we're talking about. What we're saying is that there's a deadline the court gave on the Children's Amendment Bill that we're working on. That's why there was an update last week with regard to where the bill is at this point in time. There's a deadline to that, but there is an issue of you guys having been granted the extension, that there are certain requirements of reporting. And I think we've also there's been no confusion of any issue. Please, let's not go back there.
Chairperson, can I please come in before you close?
Yes, Minister.
Yes. Okay, Connie is there. At least I can see she's listening. We will respond, not today, but the other things that need to be done. There's one plea I want to make, Chairperson, because the issue of the noises and other things and going to court and all, we've got a problem where some of our documents, even when they are still under discussion and so forth, they get leaked and they mess up the entire process. It's a plea from my side. I don't want us to work on the basis of documents that are leaked by whoever who wants to leak the documents. It's a plea for me to say we've got formal processes, we've got formal procedures that we normally do. We respect the side of the committee. I would never try and get other people to go and leak information from the committee side or anybody else. It's a plea. If we want to work with each other very well and continue respecting each other the way we've been respecting with each other, it pains me when certain action is taken by some members on the basis of leaked information. If you want information, please kindly request us very officially and openly. We will give you the information that we think is necessary for us to give you, especially if we have not completed processes. That's my plea, Chairperson. Let's respect each other in this space.
Honorable Member, I think is there anyone who wants to, I'm trying to close. Is there anyone who wants to address the matter?
Yes, Chair. I was
Yes.
going to propose that you close the meeting at that note.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Chair?
Yes?
No, Chair, may I say something just for half a minute, Chair?
Yes.
I want to agree with what Minister Lindiwe Zulu has said. And I think today, when we dealt with the issue of food distribution, it is an emotive issue. And being on the ground is really tough for many of us, specifically for me, and when I know from my experience, and I'm certain for everybody else. But I want to take what the minister has said on board. On Tuesday, I was at Tygerberg Hospital, and I want to share it with the committee. We do have to unify with COVID-19. We do need to unify our nation as well. And so I want to assure the minister that, yes, we do understand there are gaps that we are highlighting here, but we do appreciate as well the fact that we're dealing with human beings that are working long hours under tremendous stress. And if that has not come across today, I do apologize. The gaps on the ground does affect all of us, but I do take your thank you.
Honorable Seker.
Yes, sir.
I'm saying addressing these matters is not an event. With the powers vested in me, can I declare the meeting closed?
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson.
I love you.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Chair.
Bye-bye. Hi, Mama Jane.